Sql data. I could probably pull that data too. All right. All right. Let me find some data. I just had a file open here. I'm going to use, and I actually put all this data out on. Look up on Tarkle. I'll show you what it's for this week. All right, so under lab, I have a list of files here. One of them I'm going to use this Gapminder 5-year data CSV. So I'm going to use this in my demo tonight, but it's out here. If you wanted to follow along and do the exact same thing, that's fine. It's out there.
It's in our lab for 7?
Yep. It's Gapminder 5-year data. Something I grabbed off that site. So for this lab, it's there. Then choose Python 3.
Can you enlarge that on the? Will it enlarge on the?
Yeah, probably. Let me see. And could probably do this. I don't know what it'll do. Yeah. Does that look?
We're doing restaurant.
No, Gap one.
Gapminder.
Gapminder, yep. Is that big enough?
Yes.
All right, cool. So we'll start off with our traditional stuff, which is importing our libraries. So this will always be the same for what we're doing. And then we'll do numpy, SMP. Now these as, you could call them whatever you want to call them, that's up to you. And then we'll import our mat library, matplot.
So we just go to Jupyter and just create a new.
Yeah, so if you, so go to Anaconda and then Jupyter. So then we'll just read it. And then I'll just put where my files are at. I think it's in the Python folder. Then let me, yeah. That's it. Yeah.
How did you create another line there?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'll leave it up there.
How did you create that second line?
So each line, like when I created the first line, I hit the run button, and then I go to, it produces another line, and then like on line 2, I input that screen, and then I hit run, and every time you hit run, it produces another line that you can write code in.
Doesn't matter if we use quotes or the.
I think it requires ticks.
Yeah.
You could try the quotes. I don't know. I can't remember if it'll work or not. You'll know in a second. They work in quotes?
No, I was just hoping to work that I didn't like type something on. Because that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
Just actually importing it. Because it's so much easier in our studio, because at least in my opinion, because all you have to do is you set the working directory to the source file location.
It automatically pulls it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, since this is a web environment, it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. I know what you mean there.
I have a question. The documents, Python, that's just a file you saved under, right?
Yeah.
All right. So if I did downloads, it would just be downloads there instead?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I did.
All right. Thank you.
is correct.
Yeah, I was about to type out the documents Python thing, and I was like, probably just downloads.
Anyone need any extra time?
And again, mine's not finding for some reason.
Did you put the location of where the file's at? Like now, mine's in documents, but yours might be somewhere else. So just remember, wherever you have your file at, that's what you'll put there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yours might be like,
For data analysis visualization, but if it's in the desktop, like the desktop or.
yeah, so you would put like C:/user/your name/desktop/ the folder name is. So yeah, it's unfortunate you have to specify on Windows, you have to specify it out. On Apple, it looks like it's on a server level.
Billy, another thing you can do is like once you download it, you could just use downloads/gapminder IDR data or .csv. Like you don't need to put it in a folder.
You see downloads?
Yeah. This. I hope that's true. Yeah, because it's.
I'm not reading it for some reason.
Are you good? You good now, Bill? Oh my God, I can't talk to you. Okay now.
I'm sorry, no, I'm still.
We'll come back to you.
I have-
How's everyone at home? If you're following along, you guys are good, ladies.
Yep.
Okay. All right, we'll come back to you, Billy. All right. So what I wanted to talk about is how like we can print a certain number of rows. So if we start off and type, oops, maybe when we print df, which is our mean. So we know in this case right here we have 1,704 rows at 6 columns across. So if we're going to print our mean and start off with location, and we put a 0 in here. So those who are familiar with programming code, the bracket and a 0 would be considered like a data structure, almost like a data structure called an array. And 0 always starts the first line of the element within the data that you're getting back, and then 1's the second line, and so forth. So in Python here, in this case, 0 starts off as actually the first row. So if I run this, you'll see that we have this value here. It just pulls back the value, which basically, oh, sorry, basically, come on, go away. All right, this thing is going to play games with me. All right, so it's going to have to stay there. Anyways, it pulls the first line of code up, And so what I'm trying to tell you here is if you wanted to pull the first line of code up in your data analysis, you have to start at 0. Some of you probably already know that, you may not know that, but just wanted to kind of point that out. If I pulled up number 1, it would actually pull up the second line of code versus the first line of code. So in this case right here, we have 1,704 records. So that right there allows us to pull up. Billy, how you doing now, buddy?
Still can't figure it out. I don't know what's going on.
All right. Give me a second, and I'll help you out somehow. So the next thing is, let's say that we wanted to pull the last row up, and we wanted to print the last row. So a couple things that we could do here is if I type in print and say I wanted to, I'll do the same thing right here. I'll do df, I'll do location. But in this case right here, we know that there are 1,704 rows. I'm just going to show you why this will not work. So if I print out 1,704, and this could be an easy mistake where someone goes to print it and say, oh, okay, it should work because when I look at it, it says there's 1,704 rows, no big deal. So that should work for me. Okay, it won't work for me. That's good. I'm happy. So the reason being is this kind of goes back down to, provide you some type of crazy error message. This is because we said that even though there's 1,704 rows, in reality, since everything starts at 0, it's a little tricky here. 1,703 would actually be our last row. And I'll show you a way that we could kind of pull that up automatically versus, and hopefully you guys can see because I think my screen's, well, it's zoomed in here. It might be just zoomed in for them. So if I would, I'm going to copy that code again. So, well, actually, I could probably just come here and just put 1,703 and rerun it. And so by doing that, it pulls up my last data. So if you actually pull up that file, you'd see right here, 1,703 is my last row, which is Zimbabwe at 2007, and that's what my value is right down here. So that is one way of pulling up the data. I'll be right back.
So I have it right here. So it's supposed to go downwards.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so you have this as well, you might have specified a whole thing with C1 / so if you don't mind. That's all right. So let's do this. You might be like this. It's not you, man. Computer. Where else? Like, everything here is good, so you're doing it right, so there's something you're doing wrong. But just for some reason, it doesn't recognize this one, it's like, this is good. Your imports are fine. What's that?
Are there backslashes in the product?
You know what they are, so you.
If you add a second one everywhere there's a single backslash, that fixes it. I have that same problem we did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for some reason, Python interprets a single backslash as a command.
Oh, I see
Whereas
what you're
if you
saying.
do a double backslash, it interprets it as just a single
Nice catch. Yeah, okay, I forgot about how that works. She was right. Nice catch. I forgot that it works like that. There you go. You want to screenshot, remember that one. Nice catch. I forgot because back in the day, right, like not in programs, when you went to pull up libraries, you had to use two slashes or what it is, we'll figure it out. I completely forgot about that. Nice catch. All right. All right.
So anytime you do a single slash, we got to do.
You got to do two. So it doesn't work like Linux. Sorry, guys and ladies at home. So what it was is he's using Windows, and I didn't pick it up on. But Jen got gold star today by adding two slashes. It's been so long.
See the last couple, the next couple of scripts.
Sure. Maybe not. Actually, wrong screen.
Mine works with one. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why it doesn't, but.
Oh, really?
But is that on the C drive or a different drive? Because I made a separate drive for this.
Oh, it's C drive.
Yeah, I made like a D drive, called it data for all these like projects.
Oh, okay. So you have like another map drive, and it might pick up the map drive as differently than the main system. Interesting.
Yeah, I think he showed that even last week with not last week, sorry, 2 weeks ago. Whenever was it Angel that showed how to do it on his? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that issue. Yeah, so I had to put it on D.
Interesting.
Yeah, that actually gave me the idea, so I learned from that. So.
Why does Windows have to be so difficult?
Capitalism, that's my answer for everything.
You good now?
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
I'm sorry.
Don't want to leave a man stranded. It's like being in war. All right. If anyone else has problems at home, you can share your screen. If I don't figure it out, someone in this class will figure it out.
Can you run us through real quick what she meant by D drive? How you do that?
She's talking about a map drive. So you could there's a way that you could. Well, she might have another this drive, and if she doesn't, you could partition your C drive into another drive. So let's say you have a terabyte drive, you could partition it off. Well, you could do internal as well. So you could partition it and make it a separate drive. Let's say maybe drive 1 is 500, drive number 2 is 500. You can make it DE, whatever you want to map it to. That's one way, but another way is if you have, say, a desktop or even maybe not so much a laptop. If you have a desktop and you add another hard drive to your computer, then you could also map that drive as well. And I'm not sure if that's what she has there going on.
I think I allocated, so I partitioned, like I took from my C drive and that was the quickest way I found to do it.
Okay, so you have a laptop then?
Yeah, I have an HP laptop, and I just I took from my C drive, and I have to figure out how to allocate it back because I think I have like 60 gigs on this new drive just because I was trying to find a way to do it quickly, and that's the way I did it. But I think I might take some away from this.
Gotcha.
Because I have a lot on it now. I probably won't use it for that much, but I use it for this class and 542. I just keep all my files on there.
Well, Billy will be calling.
So you basically take part of your C drive and just turn it into a D drive?
Yeah. So on a Windows machine, you can map them in from letter drives versus Apple is a little bit different. Just
Jeff,
file system. Yes, sir.
sorry, do you mind scrolling to the top? My PC kind of restarted in the middle of lectures. So I just got it back and I just wanted to see what's at the top. Thank you. Thank you.
So why would pulling it from a C drive be different than pulling it from a C drive?
Yeah, because it treats it a little bit different because of the mapping file location. Almost treats it well. I won't say. Here's the thing, because on a C drive is always your common drive, and it has all your system files and stuff like that. So things are a little, let's say, a little tricky. But if you have that extra drive, you don't mess around with the system files. So you could go directly to that location without having to have special access, you could call it.
Where's the A&D drive?
Well, the funny thing about that is way back in the day, when you had floppy disks on your computer, that was always associated with the A drive automatically by default. And then there wasn't a B drive, but the C was your hard drive, and then D was usually like your CD, DVD, etc., and then everything else usually followed afterwards. But nobody uses floppies anymore. Actually, does anyone even know what a floppy is?
I do, that's why I haven't thought of a floppy and a system for a long time, that's why you brought that up.
Yeah, usually when I talk to my undergrad students about it, they're just looking at me like I'm talking another language. They're like, what is that? I'm like,
Play with it.
yeah.
Pull the little metal slider down,
Yep.
I'll sit there and just do that.
One of my first cameras had a 3.5-inch floppy disk, and it got so each disk got 1.44 megabytes of files, but you could take a lot of pictures with that at that time. Now, that was Sony came out with a camera like that. Everyone good now? All right, cool. So we'll move on a little bit. If anyone needs to catch up, we'll catch it back up. All right, so I'm scrolling down here a little bit, taking this data, and hopefully we can see here. So I'm going to do another DF, and well, print statement. Uh-oh. Dance time, man. All right, you didn't catch it. All right, sorry. All right, so so if you do n equals 1, what this will do is it'll print the last line. So what we're doing is you'll see this way back in the day when I did a lot of data analysis. We did it through command line screens, and so basically Unix command. So this is kind of goes back to that language where you always have a heading and a tail. Heading is your first file, tail is your last file. So
tell it into print.
The last line. So DF.
What's DF?
It's the mean. It's the mean of the file. Tail is TAIL is the last line of your code. So
Just running all of these at once, you don't have to keep re-entering it, because in R it's almost like you have to re-enter it.
Yeah, we don't have to re-enter it.
So we hit run, it's running every single line is run. Giving us.
Say this again.
So whenever we hit run, it's running 1 through 7.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, this right here. Every time we do something, the code's already. Think about the code sitting in memory, and what we're doing is we're just going out and analyzing the data. So in this case, this line right here, if I say, hey, let's look at the last line of code, last line of data to compare whatever was added. But just entering this command, it'll pull up the last line, allow us to identify that. Reason for that is a lot of times is you might be importing a file somewhere that you're passing on to another group, and it's important to see what the beginning line is and the end line is, because there might be meaningful information in there depending on what company that you work for. Every company has its own, let's say it has its own specified rules that are in place. And I say this loosely because some of my experience working with the banking industry, a lot of stuff that we get imports into a mainframe system, and mainframe uses head and tail for a lot of stuff, and it's very particular because it's very old school and it just only knows the basics, so you have to be very careful or it'll just completely throw it off. Hopefully that helps you. Yes, sir. All right, so now let's say that we wanted to print several different lines or rows or whatever. So in SQL, we could easily SQL and say select all from this table where column IDs are in these columns, whatever. But in Python, we'll just print and we'll just do df. So define our main location, and in this case right here, we'll have our open and closed brackets. So it's almost like we're doing once again, it's almost like we're doing an array, but now we're sending the rows in. So I could say, hey, give me line 0, give me line 199, give me line 299.
These are rows that we're printing?
So yeah, these are,
Or locate?
yeah, so this is the specific rows that you want to print. You don't have to do the same ones I'm doing. I'm just kind of giving you an example. So if I wanted to pull these rows up, row 0, which is the first line, row 99, row 299, 399, 449.
Top 10. What if you just went into top 10?
We'll get to that too.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. And I just entered it in wrong anyways. So what you have to do is, I think I missed a bracket here. Pretty sure. Yeah, you have to have 2 brackets, I think. Yeah. So you have to have 2 brackets. One bracket is like the main bracket, but the second one defines the values. So this right here, as you see here, move this guy out of the way, or move this guy up here. So as you see here, it pulls up our values. And these are just row 0, row 99, 399, whatever. You can specify as many as you want. And there might be a reason for this. Think of it this way: when you're getting your data, there might be a reason or a rhyme for it. Maybe you know that every 100 rows is, maybe the vendor told you, hey, when we send you the data, every 100 rows are going to be territorial data. We're going to send you 500 rows of data. We know that the first 100 is territory northeast, the next 100 is northwest, etc. So that right there in your brain, you're like, okay, I know this. So you could hurry up and pull up certain information and compare it and see what data you have. This is, like I said, when you work in the business of data analyzing, it could be so many different things that you're doing. It just depends on what the purpose. Usually the outcome of this is, it could be many things. It could be, you could be on the front line where you're working on pushing a file somewhere, or you could actually say be in marketing or something like that. And your job is to analyze numbers and see what type of data is coming in. It could be a variety of different things, but data never lies. Data is awesome.
For our midterm, I got some great insight from Morgan last night because we were doing a midterm, we're uploading, use our own whatever data we really wanted to. So
Yeah.
luckily I have some Excel files from work, but I was doing nothing with, so I didn't know what to do, to find out anything. And sure enough, as soon as I started playing around with it, I was able to, I noticed right off the bat why they kept certain accounts and gave them to the order rep, and but then I was able to see some really good insights. And today, I attacked those, the next 5 after the top 5 that aren't mine. I hit them all today, and so
That's cool.
This is great. That's just another example. You know what I mean?
Yep. It's awesome. You'll be running the show soon.
I hope so.
Nice. So if we wanted to just
I have a question.
Go for it.
I noticed that on the header you always have Panda as PD and NumPy as MP, but we have never done anything with MP. Does anything specific? Because I read every time that we read df equal PD is calling pandas, but we have never done anything with NumPy.
Yeah, that's a good observation. It's just the reason is I have you putting in is more of less of a get used to it, because eventually when we do use it, instead of just reintroducing it to you, it's just a common thing. These are 3 libraries that we will use in a class, so it's just more or less, you're like, if I don't come to you in 4 weeks and say we're introducing this new library, It's more of a get used to it. And if we don't use it, it's not in this language. It doesn't hurt you if you don't use it. But other languages like Java, .NET, whatever, if you don't use certain libraries, it takes up more memory and causes more problems because it's searching all these different locations. But it is an excellent question, though.
So PD and NP are 2 separate libraries?
Yeah, 2 different separate libraries.
How many are there?
Lots of them. I don't know off the top of my head, but there's a lot of them. Do you have another question? Okay. Yeah, there's lots. There's hundreds of libraries. Good question. Any other questions from anyone else? All right. So now, if we wanted to print like a subset of data, we could do print, obviously print statement. Let's say that we want to print a specific row. Does anyone know what we would type here? Say we want to print line 5.
What?
What's that?
DF block to print 2 boxes.
And then just 5?
Well, another one, it's got 2.
2, okay.
5.
Why would you put, okay, so we want to print row
5 in there.
5 right here. All right.
Yeah. And that's
So, so here's this. You're right. That's good. But one interesting thing about that is when someone tells you line 5, you have to understand that really line 5 is line 4 because row 0 is the first line. So just a heads up. So if someone tells you that, it's something. It's like it's like putting your mind in a different location. You could also do it this way, which that's a good way of doing it, which we did. We could do iLocation, and in this case, we could just put like let's say we put 5. We'll keep it consistent. We could print it like this, and so all this does is, bless you, it just prints it in a different location. So this one right here goes across the screen. This one is goes vertically down the screen. So it does the same thing. It just provides the output in a different, visually a different way of looking at it.
That doesn't subtract the row.
No.
Still the same.
Right, same thing. So let's say that we wanted to do a subset of data. So what I could do here is I could type in subset equals define location. Hopefully you can see this. And then I'll do location. I'll do a bracket. I'll do a colon, comma, another bracket. And then what I'll do here is I'll separate like 2 columns, for example. So I'm separating them by ticks. So actually, I forgot I could zoom in here too. Hopefully that looks even better. I forgot. So I could use 2 columns I want to use. So maybe
Space between the column and
there isn't a space in between those. So if I hit backspace, I'll knock the comma out. So what I'll do here is I'll put 2 columns, maybe country, and I'll just say continent. Like that. So what this does right here is I'm just going to hit enter, nothing's going to happen. So at this point, we're saying we're using a subset. Now, subset is just is a variable. That variable could be anything. You could call it anything. Just know that I always say come up with some type of meaningful name when you write a variable. DF means the mean. LOC means.
we need to call subset anything.
Yeah. So in programming, it's basically subset is a variable. Just to not get real in deep with it. But certain languages you have to describe the variable, what type of data type it is. But like with Python, you don't have to describe what data type it is. But where I call it subset, I could have called it anything. I could have called it Bob. I could have called it Mark Fortman. I could have called it my name. It doesn't matter. It would still work. You're just using a variable to hold that information.
We're going to call on that. We're going to call on it again in another.
Yeah.
So we're going to use subset to call on this.
Right, but what I'm trying to say is the name subset, you could call it anything, but always call it something meaningful so that it makes sense. So if someone else on your team's looking at it and they're like, why do you call Mark Fortman? Why didn't you call it something else? And you're like, okay, is there a secret behind that? So it's important to specify some type of meaning, whatever it's doing. So now if I do print in parentheses, and then I'll do subset, so that's the name of the value, and then I'll do head. So this is the other thing that's kind of like tell. It's the heading, the head of the file. So I'll do that and just click execute or run, sorry. And what that does is when you do the head, H-E-A-D, it provides the top, kind of like your answer before. Hey, how do I do the top 5? Well, here you go, top 5 of whatever subset of data. I chose country and continent. I could have chose other values here as well. And so all you do here is it's like specifying what field name or column that you want to see in your top 4 or 5, whatever you want to do. But this right here, subset will provide us. The heading is always your top 5 records.
Why is there another set of parentheses after that?
Just to confuse you. No, so when you call the head is like a, so in programming languages, there's something called a method or a function. But in this case, think of it as a function. It's a function could be, think of something specific. All right, so for example, you like football, right? All right, so
Hockey
on,
more.
what's that?
Hockey more.
Hockey more, okay, we'll say hockey. So on hockey, you have 2 sides, you have offense and defense. So, you know, defense has certain positions, certain things that they do. So maybe the sweep mode, he or she, well, not she, sorry, he at this point, but one day it'll be a she out there too.
There's some pro hockey players, trust me.
NHL?
Well, collegiate.
Yeah.
They're pretty good.
All right, so he or she, sweep mode, they kind of are like a function because they have a particular job. Or if you're like the Crosby of the league, you're playing center, you have a position. You're like basically, I mean, you are the captain, but you could kind of be all over the place versus one, instead of being left wing or right wing, you have a specific job. And that's kind of how this works right here. It has a specific job. So when you use the parentheses, that means that you're calling this function. But since we don't have any values in there, we're not setting any arguments to have it do something else. But if you have an open and closed parentheses, it just means that you're calling a function and you're not passing any arguments to it. Does that make sense? Okay. I like to try to, everything I talk about, I like to bring it down to something that someone does. I try my best to incorporate it. So if it's hockey, whatever, it's, you know, baking cookies, if it's making wine, I can tell you that all day. But you get my point. Any questions at home?
No.
Okay, cool, thank you. All right, so I'll keep going then. All right, so now let's say that I want to set a range. So I'll say small range equals list. So I want to do a list. I'll do range, and then in my range, I'll specify what I want to do. So I'll say like 5, for example, since 5 seems to be our magic number. So actually, range is, just remember, it's range, you use parentheses, not brackets. So I have small underscore range. Once again, it can be called anything. Equals list. List is a list in this case is a function, and within the function, think of it as we're calling an argument and passing a value. So this argument that we're using is range. It's more or less like a sub function. And so within list is function number 1, range is a sub function. Within that sub function, we're passing an argument, and that argument is 5, which basically means that we want to pull the top 5 records. We don't know what those are at the moment, which is pretty common what it will be. So then if I hit enter and I type in subset dot heading, head, like that, you can imagine we should get 0 through 4 here, works. And that's exactly what we did. So we did this a little bit different than we did it up here. So when we did it up here, we got, up here we did top 5, which we printed out what we wanted. But since we already have this value in here, we're able to call our subset variable up here. Let me kind of go back here for a second. So up here we defined what our subset data was, and it could have been, you could add other columns here, that's fine. And then down here, what we did is we set a range of how many records that we wanted to do. We could have did 6, 7, whatever. Actually, we couldn't have did 6, 7 because we would have had to change this value, we had to change this value up here to say 6 or 7 as it works its way down. But this right here kind of goes off of that variable of subset, and it prints not only does it print the numeric value out, but it prints the actual value out as well. So it's just a different way of doing it.
So range 5, that doesn't pull from the top 5, you have to do subset head.
So you have to call your variable. So you have to specify what you're doing here is if we didn't do subset head, it wouldn't know what data to pull. Actually, wrong one. Let me zoom out for a second. I thought that would help me. But subset is my variable that I have up here, so it knows what data to pull. The range is saying, hey, we're going to pull the top 5. If I put 7 or 8, that's fine, but I need to have a variable. Which variable do I want to pull? I'm doing the heading, so it's going to give me the top 5.
I'm still confused as to how the list and range knows what data to pick up. Are they just picking up anything from the environment?
So that's a great question, David. So what it's doing here is it's working off of this code right here. So this code right here, we set up a variable called subset, and we said that we wanted to get country and continent. Okay, so that's our data that we want to get. So think of it this way: we're taking this data and we're adding it to memory. And so we say that we're going to use country and continent. Those are 2 columns we're going to have. Yeah. And then below, when we print that data, it shows us our top 5, because that's this right here. When you set it up this way using this format, it's automatically going to give you the top 5 lines of code. Down here with the range, to answer your question, this range right here, this range right here automatically says that we want to give me the list of 5 records. And to answer your question, where's it getting the data at? It's just grabbing it from this subset variable up here. We're putting it down here. We're saying, hey, give us this subset head that's up here. And so that way it'll pull, even though the records are the same, they're duplicate, but it's going to pull the top 5 from there. If we would have pulled something else, then it would have matched this data. But what data is stored in this variable is the data that you're going to get down here on this list range.
Yeah, so I tried changing the numbers, but that doesn't work. So if you put like 2 in there instead of 7, so we don't have to increase it, I was just trying to see if something changes, and nothing changes. So that's where I got confused.
Yes, that's another good question. Reason being is when you pull the subset, when you pull the head of anything, what happens is the head by default pulls the top 5 records.
Yes.
So if you come down here and put the range 2, it won't make a difference. If I put 28 down here, it's not going to make a difference. So in reality, I probably could just do this, and it will error out. But the problem is, it wants to have some type of number in there. Let's say I put 1 in here, for example, works fine. You have to have a number in there for it to work. Unfortunately, if you add nothing, then it doesn't know how to interpret it. It could also be another way of looking at it from a software standpoint. I would say it's a poorly written function, because you shouldn't have to pass a numeric value to display something.
Mm-hmm.
That's my personal opinion on it.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Help you?
Yeah, I'm still a little bit confused about the range function itself, but it's not about this. It's more about understanding like the documentation of how range works. But from a surface level, I get what you are explaining. Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else have any other questions?
If there's any way that you can project steps, for example, if I want to project 0 and 3, how would I? You know what I mean? So if I want to project the first one and skip 2 and then the fourth one? There's a way of doing this?
I'm not sure if I follow. You mean if you wanted to skip like a number,
Yeah.
if you wanted to skip a number and just do 0, 1, and 4 or something like that.
Let's say I want to project the even roads.
Yeah, so you would have to not use you could use subset, but you wouldn't use subset.head. You would use subset dot, and you could use one of these. Actually, let me see. Yeah, well, if you're doing, let me think about this. You could probably do something like this and use location and specify specific numbers, like specific row numbers. You could do that to specify the certain ones that you want. So like we did this one here, we did these are the numbers that we want, the specific rows. We could do it that way. But when you're doing, anytime that you're using head or tail, you're going to get either the top 5 or the last. But as far as skipping them, you have to do the same thing up here where you specify which ones you specifically want to see.
Okay.
Good question. You guys are doing good. Keep them rolling. Any other questions? You got this, Billy? After you got a good one.
Oh, good. Good right now, I think.
All right. Good stuff. All right. So now what we're going to do is do something different. So now we're going to print we're going to print like a range, but a different way. So you'll see there's different things to doing. So we'll do define our location, and you guys, I would suggest do something different than me just to see what you get. So I'm going to say give me lines 10 through 23, and I'll do a comma here. I'll do a space, and then I'll specify what columns I want to see. So I know I have country. I know I have. Let me see if I can do something different. Let's see what we have up here because I don't remember offhand. I'll do year and life expectancy year. All right. So let's do life expectation. Yeah, I'll just say do year. Just 3 different.
Jeff, just to interrupt you just a bit. I actually, because I said I was confused about the range. Sorry to bring you back to that again. So I actually went there on the Python documentation to check what the range does, and it just generates a range of numbers from 0 to the number you put there. So essentially, small range. If you try to print out small range, you should see 0 and 1.
Oh, okay. I got what you're saying.
Yeah. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah. Can you send that? Can you share that link in the chat?
Sure, I'll do that right now.
Thank you.
No problem.
I love it when you guys are searching because it helps me. Like I said, it helped me learn but more too. All right. So this one right here, we're printing a range from 10 to 23. I'm doing it a little bit different. So we're doing 10:23. So we'll do from line 10 to 23. I'm specifying what columns. So I just specified these 3 columns right here. As you see here, I have the first bracket and the second bracket. So the first one is specifying the range of numbers. The second one is specifying the bracket that represents the columns that we're going to use. And then these 2 brackets right here closes it off. It closes the columns off, and it closes off the exposure to the range. So then I'll just go ahead and click run, and it doesn't work. All right, so let me see what I did wrong.
I think you need another bracket because you have 3, because you have more than 1 column.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So yeah, so.
Yeah. So it didn't work. Good question.
He says the second one goes right next to country. 3 on the right side and 2 on the right next to country because there's 1 on before 10. Yeah.
I don't know.
Delete, yeah. Now it should work.
Did you get yours to work?
Yeah. I don't know why it's the same.
That's fine.
Mine didn't work either.
All right, let's see here. Country, life. Maybe I spelled it wrong. Let's do this because I know continent's on there.
Space after, the comma, after 23.
Okay. Space after 23. Oh, okay. Like that?
Sorry, no, after the comma.
There should not be a
There
space?
should not be a space.
Yeah. That's one thing about Python. It is kind of tricky. It still didn't work. What did I do wrong?
Does the capitalization of life expectancy, does that matter? Because it's not capital in mine.
Yeah, I was wondering that same thing. I was going up to see it. It's probably case sensitive. I don't know if here was specified too. No. All right. Thank you, everybody, that helped out on that one. Case sensitive is definitely, Python is very sensitive on its information. How did you get yours to work if you had two brackets over here? I'm intrigued about that one.
Yeah, that's what I'm confused now, because in the previous example that you show, whenever you show more than 2 columns, you always had two.
Yes, mine didn't work that way when I did too. I was curious about that one. I would like to see a screenshot of that because that's intriguing. Well, anyways, hopefully, did anyone else try and get it to work or not work? Well, anyways, this one did define it, so I could change it and say 230. And so, as you can see, my screen it won't even show it all on the screen. So we'll just keep it at 23. But that's specified. All right. What else do I have to show you? You get it yet, Billy?
Just go back up the lines.
This line or another line? Okay.
Now, if you rerun it, say you have an error in the script and you make just one change to it and run it again, will it run, or do you have to go to the next line?
No, you could make a change and run it again or run it. That's what I've kind of been doing there.
I got it now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Add year capital, add year capital.
Yeah, I did too. It's case sensitive. Should remember that. We have a few more things to do on this, and then we'll be done with this stuff. So we'll move on to group by. Has anyone ever heard of group by? What group by is? So, like in SQL, I'll use SQL for example. SQL is a good one, a good theory, because in SQL you could do a group by of certain columns. So let's say that you have 1,000 columns, 1,000 rows of data, and you have, I don't know, 10, 12 columns, whatever. Let's say the 1,000 lines of data could be duplicate values on certain areas. So let's say that for, what's that?
You say, I'm sorry.
I said that, I said group by, I was talking about what it is.
It could be duplicate, I didn't hear you.
That's all right. So if you have, let's say that you have a file, a SQL file. Your database has 1,000 rows of data, and there might be a column that has duplicate values. So let's say that city is Pittsburgh, and it's on there 72 times. And let's say that you had Pittsburgh is on there 72 times. Let's say state, Pennsylvania, for example, is on there 72 times. So when you're looking at the code, at the data, you see Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, blah, blah, blah. So group by allows you to define specific. What it does is it takes out the duplicate values. It only shows you a single value. And it only works when you have, if you have like 5 rows of columns and you have Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania 72 times, and let's say that the other 3 columns have different values, when you do the group by, it's not going to matter. If you use all 5 of those columns, you're going to get all 72 records. But let's say that you took the 2 columns, which is just city and state, and you used the group by, you're only going to get 1 value. That's what you want to do, is to be able to define specific records. So when you're analyzing stuff, there's a lot of times you'll just do the group by. You could use there's a value in SQL called distinct that does the same thing, but group by is I'd say it's the safe way. It's the more professional way of doing it. It's the unique way. So anyways, we're going to talk about doing a group by in Python. And I just wanted to kind of specify what group by was, so I'm not talking out of my butt, basically. So if I do define, and then I can type in group by, and then I can pick 2 columns. I'll just say country, for example, and maybe, I don't know, country and, well, let's see what we have up here. Continent, if I spell it right. So that might be a good one. Maybe continent and country. Well, doesn't matter if whatever order, maybe it doesn't matter. So anyways, we could do continent and country. And let's see, did I do it wrong? Actually, I think I did it wrong. I had to do it differently. So, so you find the one, and then you have to put the second one in parentheses like this, or not brackets. So first one is parentheses, other one's brackets. So I'll say continent. I spelled it right. And then I want to get the mean of it. So I'll type in mean, and I'll do open close bracket and bracket like that. I think that's it. All right, it's not it. All right, what did I do wrong? All right, so we have print, define group by country. We have, oh, I see what I did wrong. Forgot to close this off. All right, well, that didn't work either. All right, we're getting there. Mean. All right, did I spell something wrong? Nope. All right, define group by country, continent. That should be right. Let's see why. Oh, I think I know why. Hold on. Oh, you know what? I think, okay, I know. You can't, when you're defining the group by, you can't have 2, know what it is. You can't, when you're doing it, you could do one, which is, let's call it a literal string of a data type of a character. The second one has to be some type of numeric value. You can't specify when you're doing a group by in Python. In this specimen, we can't provide another duplicate of that because you see here it's looking for a float value, a float being some type of numeric value. So to get that to work, I'll just say year, for example, instead. This should fix it. Yeah, that's what I needed to do. So when you're doing a group by in this aspect, you have to have, think of it as a character, a string. That's a better way, a string value. And then your second value has to be some type of numeric value, such as, in this case, year is numeric, or life expectancy would have been a numeric value. And that's why it didn't work by using continent. So now I could put continent here, and it should work. Yeah, see, continent does the same thing. And I have the year. Maybe life expectancy would be a better theory, a better code to look at here. That should work as well. Yeah, so you see that works. Maybe if I can specify that. There you go. So this might even be a better data right here. We have the continent and the average life expectancy in Africa is 48, whereas 71 in Europe. I don't want to live in Africa. I had 3 years left.
So what do we do right there? I got lost.
So did I. No. What part are you looking for?
Just why didn't it work, and then why didn't it work?
Okay. So the reason it didn't work is when you're doing a group by in this aspect, you can't have two string values. So I had country and continent. Those are string data types because the value is going to be a string. It's going to be a word. Whereas
string means
yes, a string is anything that would be a word like bicycle, car, truck, ambulance, exactly. But in this case, it specifies it. So think of it as the first parameter or argument has to be a string. The second one has to be some type of numeric value. So when I look at our data, if you look at it, you see life expectancy is a numeric value because the values that we're getting back are decimal related, or year is a decimal related. So I know that in this aspect, I have to provide a numeric value. So that's why it worked that way. It comes down to that's what Python has. Now, if I was doing SQL, I wouldn't. If I was in MySQL, SQL Server, this whole rationalized setup would go out the door because it wouldn't matter whether I was using a string value or a numeric value, it would still work.
Thank you for that. I caught on to it a little when you first went over it, but it didn't make sense.
No worries, man. That's why I'm here, to not make sense sometimes, or I won't be doing my job. All right, I'm gonna move on to the last part of this. All right, so now I'm gonna set up another. We're gonna basically set up a set of data, and then we're gonna make a chart out of it within here. Let's see if it works.
All group bys, no matter what you do, no matter what you want to do, it has to be led by text and numeric.
Yep. So I'm going to do the global yearly life expectancy on this one. So I'm setting that as my value, or my variable, and I'll do group by, and I'll do year, and then I'll provide life expectancy. So we use the same theory that we had up there. We're going to change it up because I think we could do it this way as well. But if it doesn't work, because this will kind of go back to contradict what I set up here as well. But let's see. I'm just going to use it as an example. doesn't, then I was wrong. I was right. Let's put it that way. So what we're doing here is we're doing something a little bit different. So we're taking the, like we have the DF group by continent, life expectancy, mean up here. I'm going down here and I'm adding a variable in front of this and giving it a value. Now I think, and I said you had a string here. I think, actually, let's try this real quick. Let me copy this code and exit out. Let me try this real quick. I think I can make this work. Yeah, so I was, well, year, okay, so I could, oh, you know why, I know why year worked. Year is a string value, so that's why it worked. When you think, when I think of a database year, I'm thinking I'm going to have as an integer, as a whole number, but they have it listed here as a string, and that's why that actually worked. So, anyways, I just want.
How the year's a number?
Yeah, year is a number, but if they have year might be set up as a string in here, or it could be set up as a float, and a float could be sometimes could act as a string or a numeric value. It's just a different data type, and I just thought about that when I was typing this up. So we're going to use year in this example. So I'm going to do global. You could call this anything you want to call it, but I'm calling it global yearly life expectancy. And we're grouping it by the year and then the life expectancy in this example here.
You just close parentheses after mean.
Yep. And then I'm going to print this. I'm just going to copy this line here so I don't have to type it out. Unless you like to type, that's fine. And then I'm just going to run it. And it's basically going to provide me the same data as up here. But what I'm trying to show you is what we're trying to do differently here is I'm showing you a way that we can store this same stuff that we did up here, or not up there, the same stuff that we did up here. We just did a print statement. So let's say that we're using JavaScript. In JavaScript, we use a console.log, which just prints it to the screen.
What's JavaScript?
Something else. Another program.
Don't worry about it.
It's another way to eat food. No, it's a programming language. That's all right.
We have to do that one too?
No. So forget the analogy I was using. So this is just another way of printing stuff. Sorry. Everyone else knew what JavaScript was, right?
Yeah.
It's just you, Billy.
It's usually like that.
So Jeff?
Yeah.
Yeah, so right now the variable you're printing is a series. That's why it gives you the summary at the bottom. Were you trying to print out a data frame or a series?
More of a series.
Okay, gotcha. I was just wondering.
Good question. Now what we're going to do here is last part is, and the reason I wanted to use the variable is so that we can use it to produce some type of chart or something like that. So if I do the global yearly life expectancy or whatever, you could do different different plots or whatever. And I think I put them out here. I could be mistaken. I thought I put the link out there. Getting started. Did I put it in here? No, I didn't put it out there. Anyways, there's a link I was going to provide you with the different things that you could do with this. But if I click and hit run, it just provides this. It takes the data that we made up there. It provides I won't call it a fancy chart, just a simple chart for our measurements. And it provides, there's different charts you could do. You could Google it. And I thought I had the link up here, but I don't have the link. I'll have to get you a link. But it's just basically a library of all the different types of, we call it, geez, I can't talk. All the different types of graphs that you could do in here. So I could come out here and I could just copy this code up here. Oops. So I could come down here, copy that code. Actually, no, I could just change it up here just to show you. So usually other languages you could So we're going to use plot, and then we could add something to it. So if we want to do like a bar graph, we could just do a bar graph, and then it produces a bar graph for us as well. So there's different ones that you could do based off the library. Oops. You just want to keep changing this here. So when we have plot, you just keep changing a different function. Each function provides something different. All right, so you might want to use it one time versus multiple times. So this way, this one runs here. I'll actually put that other one down here. So I'll save this file and put it out there for you guys. So if we did that, there we go. So
Why are we using Python instead of Java?
say that again.
Why Python instead of JavaScript?
The JavaScript has nothing to do with this class. I forgot I even mentioned that word. JavaScript is more or less for front-end software development. So it allows your environment that you're doing more uniquely. JavaScript, in this case, would not be the best use of what we're trying to accomplish. They won't be able to handle the stuff that Python could do, basically.
That's what we use.
JavaScript is for front-end software development. So you
Building this application? Or building any application?
yeah, it actually could be part of this application. So on the back end of this, there's probably JavaScript written in here. I couldn't imagine that there wouldn't be. Just looking at the code. There's just not to get off topic here, but there's obviously probably JavaScript on this page here.
So that's JavaScript then.
Somewhere, yeah, up there at the top. Like if I went to my page, for example.
Is that how you built your website?
Yep, it's all written in JavaScript.
Okay, gotcha. I'll make sure.
So it's more of a way to write your code to do certain things. So to make my page more interactive, like all this is all JavaScript right here. But over here for what we're trying to accomplish, we need to use Python and not JavaScript.
Cool.
You're welcome. Any other questions online or here? So I'll throw that file out there somewhere. All right, so just put a folder out there, and I'm going to put the file out there that I just produced, so in case you didn't do it, you'll have it as a reference, and it actually just helps you do your homework even quicker. There you go. So if you pull up this and just come here and hit open and put in that file, you'll be able to open this same exact thing that we just did. All right, any last questions on that? If not, I'm going to
Where did you put that out again?
put it out on module 7 under lab, and then lab from class. Yep. Yep. Close this out. All right. You having fun yet? That's what my boss says. He just like throws a lot of work at us, and then he's like, "Anyone having fun?" Yeah. Right.
This is better than R, so.
Why better than yours?
Oh my god.
Oh, better than R Studio.
R Studio. Okay.
Sure.
Is it brutal?
Yes.
I don't really like it. I think it's like there's a lot of other things that could make better visuals and not be as annoying. But that's
Nice.
just me. I feel like I feel like it's the visuals aren't as high quality as like Tableau or anything.
Yeah, I can agree with that. All right. Which means we will now enter the other side of the universe. All right. So getting started, if you go to under Module 7, Introduction to Tableau, Getting Started, I put a link out there. So if you haven't signed up for Tableau yet, which you may have, that link I provided you, you could do a free student license.
Where's the link at?
It's out on Module 7 under Schoology.
Sign in, please.
Right here, man. Getting started.
We're supposed to do the free student license, right?
I would recommend it because you'll get access to everything. Just all you do is fill this out. I've already filled this out for myself. I already had an account last year, or from the summer when I taught this. Just fill this information out. You'll get an email automatically. You'll download Tableau, and then once you download it, it'll ask you to input your key because it'll give you a key, and then you can input that key and you're good to go. You'll find out that a lot of times when getting new software, if you're a student or have an email address that has a .edu to it, you get a lot of good treatment. I've been a student forever. I always show them either my ID. Well, I show my student ID in case my faculty ID doesn't do anything from way back in the day. I hold on to it for discounts.
Where are you student discounts at?
A lot of places.
Really?
Oh yeah. Just around campus here, you could get. I mean, usually even faculty, but even if it's not faculty, you can get student discounts. You just shows that you're a student, even though you look a lot younger. You're a lifelong student. I say. That's it. What's that?
Oh, no, it's not,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, you could get like 10-15% off of stuff.
You get like half off at Costco if you're a teacher.
Oh, really? I never knew that.
I only know because I tried getting the student one and like somehow like I messed it up. But I saw there's a teacher one where you get like the basic membership and you get a $30 Costco shop card to use. It's a gift card to use if you're a teacher.
Nice. See? Anything in
All
education.
kinds.
What's that?
I said all kinds of stuff. I still even have my IUP. IUP gave us like an alumni email, so like I still technically can use that for stuff if I wanted to as well. But like Spotify expires after like 6 years, so I can't use it for that anymore because I've had that longer.
Nice.
But I don't know if Point Park gives us one, but discounts forever.
Discounts forever. IUP. Wow. That's a cool place.
Beyond Expectations was their motto, and they took it down because people were making fun of it. Anytime if something go wrong, it'd be like Beyond Expectations, like sarcastically. Yeah.
Wow. After I finished college, I actually went to school there for 3 months. I was in the police academy back in the late 90s. It's the Municipal Police Academy of IUP. So I spent 3 months there. That's why I said it was interesting. Out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I went there because I wanted to be a teacher and it was cheap.
Okay.
Yeah, I got offered a scholarship and didn't think I was going to go because I wanted to go out of state. And then I didn't take it because I was like sick or something. And then I like turned down like some free money and then I still went there because I missed it.
Yikes.
I was going to go to James Madison, then I realized it was like crazy expensive for out of state, so I didn't go.
Yeah, out of state is always so expensive. Well, at least when I went to school, when I started going to school, like if you went to a state school like California, IUP at that time. It was like maybe $2,000 a semester. But if you went to I went out of state to West Virginia, and it was a little bit more, but still a lot more. I think it was like maybe $3,500, $4,000 a semester back then, which was considered to be a lot. But now, compared to like 18, 19,000 a semester, a lot cheaper.
Yeah, that's why their enrollment's dropping, and they're turning it into like a technical college now. They're like they're cutting programs and cutting faculty like crazy.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, my anthropology major is now going to be part of like the science department, apparently, which is interesting. They're getting rid of like music and stuff, which was my I wanted to be like a music professor originally, and then I decided I didn't want to do that because I don't want to live in poverty forever. I like other things, but yeah, they're cutting a lot. They're going to be a technical focused college because they allocated too much money to new dining halls, and they switched to a per credit tuition model. So if you take more than 12 credits, you're paying extra.
Wow.
So I probably wouldn't, like today's day and age, I wouldn't go there and pay similar tuition. I'd pay more money for a school like Pitt or Penn State, because at this point, like, you're probably going to get close to what private schools are charging anyways now with like how much they're raising things.
Good point. Hence, now you see why I have a day job. So I don't live in poverty.
Yeah.
Have to do that and sell wine.
Yes, and sell wine. Yes. I will just say, you can tell just working in the industry of technology, there's a lot of money out there to be made. The more experience you have, the more things you know. It's crazy. People are always knocking down your door, see if you want a job.
I know people with masters in music. Like if I would have went and did that, one of them works at UPS. Another one of them works at Dairy Queen. I'm not saying anything's wrong with that, but I wasn't going like further into debt.
I worked at Dairy. I was in college. Dairy Queen was awesome.
No, yep. But they graduated with a master's, almost 100,000 or more in debt, and they can't find jobs in music.
Yeah,
so that's kind of why I found other things I like to do. But I knew that before I graduated. I added the second major and figured it out. And but yeah, it's the arts. I mean, it's kind of sad they're cutting it, but at the same time, it's like I understand why. Just because of the job market.
Yes, technology jobs will never. I say they'll never end. They're just endless, and there's a lot of money in them as well. Two of my kids didn't study technology at all. I told them, but my youngest son, he wants to study computer science, so he'll be fine.
Yeah.
What?
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was like, I think it's like kind of funny because usually it's like the jobs that you hate the most, like pay the most.
Oh, right,
like
that's
accounting and whatnot.
Oh, I know. Yes, you're right. You're exactly right.
It's like,
So I downloaded desktop and prep.
And prep.
Yeah, are we supposed to do both?
Just desktop's fine, but if you got both, good for you.
What's prep do?
It just kind of wipes your computer when you go home. Shut your computer off, it'll wipe it out. It'll just mess with you.
That'd be great. Well, at least you're taping the section, so maybe I'll be able to figure it out.
No, I'm not even sure what that does.
Yeah, it told me.
Hey, Professor, as a final step to put the desktop program, he's telling me to restart. Is this normal or?
I mean,
It's probably gonna wipe your computer dry. But no, you could try it. No, I'm just kidding. You're probably fine. You could do it. We'll wait for you.
If I restart, everything will close. I have like 30 pages open.
Me too.
Yeah, that sounds normal. Well, you can always come back and look at this. No big deal.
All my art studios.
All right.
I think at work we're running 2020.21 because apparently they keep it behind a couple versions so it doesn't get laggy. They say, but.
That's smart though, because if you try to keep up with technology, sometimes it messes things up. Because you're a high mark, I think, so they probably have a lot of stuff that's important that's in that environment. So if they go to the new ones and thing doesn't work, then it causes probably a lot of financial issues with Highmark or any company.
Yeah, I need to learn Tableau like ASAP. I'm like doing a training with them, and we're using Alteryx too to like pull the data for Tableau. It's harder to find trainings on that, I think.
I've heard of that. I've never used it. I think that's one of the things that Vernon and them talked about last week.
Yeah, it's really cool because there's icons to kind of show like what you're doing. Like there's like kind of like a nice visual, and it does do things. It's just kind of harder to find resources. Tableau has plenty of classes, obviously.
Yeah, we actually had well, when COVID didn't exist, we had a challenge, a competition here on Tableau, and we actually did. I didn't do the training, but Mark, Professor Vortman, did training for like X amount of weeks, and they were like hour and a half, 2-hour trainings a day, and teach you all kind of stuff from basic to advanced Tableau stuff, just to help you build something out and present it and go for your competition. It was more or less like a Stanley Cup trophy. If you won, you got your name sketched on it, and then you get to hold on to it till the next semester. But then COVID struck, and we never got to do it again. All right, so if you don't have Tableau up, don't worry about it. This is why we're recording it. At least you could go back and look at the video. We'll just touch base on some basic stuff tonight, so nothing real crazy, but just at least get you started. And next week we'll start to learn more. I put some files out there just for basically just for you to have data, but you could always go out and grab your own data. One of the data files I put out there for mess around with the homework assignment was shoot, where's it at? I gotta pull it back up. Let's see, it was 7 lab. All right. No, it was in the homework assignment. Simple data. Yeah, so there was the Tour de France CSV file, and this stuff here is out there, but I'll grab something from my Python folder, so I'll just grab something random out there. So you have the different file formats that you could do from. So I'll just choose Excel. Go to my downloads folder here, go to my Python folder, and I have 2 Excel files. So I don't know if I wanted to use any of those. Let's just use this just to show you Excel, but we could do text file as well. Now click Open. Actually, let me do it that time. All right, so when you initially do that, it brings up kind of like a query in an aspect of it. It specifies where it's pulling it from. So we're using Excel, so it's pulling it from sheet 1. As you see here, you have a ton of different data. So kind of hard to really analyze on the fly here, but you could specify your rows and so forth over here. But for the most part, you have a list of data. It pulls it up and makes it nice and pretty, I guess you can say. Nothing fancy going on here, but at least gives you an overview. This is where I think when you're able to query the data as well and specify certain information, kind of like what we're doing with Python, when you can specify certain rows that you're looking to do or add filtering and stuff like that, it makes it a lot easier to kind of circle through. But Tableau itself is just basically a business intelligence tool that allows you to take the data from Excel and do stuff differently. And one of the things that Vern mentioned last week is they use Excel a lot and kind of take stuff in there. Excel is Tableau is out there. There's all these other tools. The one Allison mentioned. There's Oracle was big in the business. I did a consulting gig at Highmark back in early 2000s for about a year and a half, and at the time they were big on Oracle, business intelligence. At the time they were big. They're like, we're doing Oracle, and so it sounds like they're over to Tableau and other things now. But one of the things is at the end of the day, a lot of people just use Excel. If you look it up, Excel is the #1 business intelligence tool because you can do all kind of crazy stuff in it, but these tools kind of does stuff a lot quicker versus you having to learn all the things that you want to do within Excel. So anyways, enough about that. You can we could talk about, we'll pull some data from, I'll show you a way to pull data from SQL, and I'll show you, I could like consolidate some of my data and just to kind of show you stuff. Another thing is you could add filters in here. So for example, all the columns that you have here, now like I said, it's pulling it from the sheet one. So it'll have sheet one wherever the source of the data is coming from. So you can come up here and add a filter. You just click add. Maybe you want to choose, I don't know, starting city. You could choose starting city. And then you could also drill down into the data. So maybe you want to see everyone that started from Brussels and Dublin. And you could just click OK. And just, this is like, if you're writing SQL, you're writing select all from this table where this equals that, whatever. But now you're just doing it a little bit quicker though.
How did you get that file into there again? Can you show me that real quick?
How much did Billy have to pay for me? I have to repeat myself. Dude, just let me, I'll go back in a second.
All right.
Go in a minute.
I'm sorry, you're helping me out. I'm staying with you. I'm just missing.
All right, so now I'm gonna have to go back on that one. So forget that. All right, so what I did here is can you see this screen?
Yes.
So I clicked on Microsoft Excel and I chose the Tour de France, and it was one of the files that you were able to download in our thing. And then I just clicked open. That's all I did right there.
Thank you.
Yep. So under filters, once again, you can choose, what I've shown is you could choose certain information. So let's say that we wanted to choose winner, and we could select all the names, or you could just choose random names. You could choose other things, or maybe finish in city. You can choose that as well. So it looks like Paris is the only one that breaks that down. But if I hit OK, it pulls down that subset of data. So this is a quick way of querying your data on the fly. So if you're looking for certain information, so if you're doing a report on this and you're specifying, top 3 people that did stuff, it's perfect. You can hurry up and do stuff like that on the fly. But think of this way. This window is more or less your query window. It's your way that you could go out and query the data directly. And this is stuff that you could do directly from Excel too. So it's not real fancy at this point, but it's just another way of, and then you could change your name up here. You could say Tour de France data, something like that. Like I said, you could edit your filters. You could put different filters on here. So when you have the filters, I'm going to remove it here because I just want everything to be out there. When you have the filters and we go over to the other worksheets, and when you actually start creating a report, think about the subset of data that you have. It's going to follow you over to your next step. And then you're going to take that data and do something with it, create a report. That's where you could get kind of fancy with it and do different things with it. Any questions at this point right here? So I'm going to, before I go to the next step, I'm just going to show you how to pull data from other sources as well. Now, I could have did, I never did a PDF file, so I'm not 100% sure how that works, or if it's accurate, but I'd be interested in knowing how it works.
Excuse me, Professor. For some reason, I cannot see your screen.
Oh my God, are you kidding me?
I don't want it to
Is
interrupt.
there any way we can
One question at a time, man. Can everyone else see my screen?
I can see
Yeah,
it.
I can see the screen.
Yeah,
It was probably because I had to restart and reboot. It probably
Okay.
something on my end, but I cannot see it. I don't know why.
All right, so yeah, because I'm seeing it on my other screen. Maybe get out of Teams and come back in.
Okay.
What's that, Billy?
I was just asking if we could do one more show of how you do like real quick, it's like one list or 2 listings and that data set. I just got through all that.
Yeah, we will. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to connect the SQL environment real quick. So there's different, so these are different sources of data. Allison, the data that you're pulling from, are you pulling from files or are you pulling from databases?
I think it depends. I think we usually pull from like Alteryx like databases. So like we'll filter it and then like whatever the output is, we can bring into Tableau. I'm pretty sure.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm getting used to Alteryx though. So, and like today, I checked some stuff against like a Tableau like pre-built dashboard. I like pulled it from Alteryx and like made like a, I don't know, like a little table, and compared it to a dashboard that was already made. But I think they can somehow insert it, but I haven't got to that step yet in this new job.
Cool. Sounds exciting. So from a server standpoint, I don't have SQL Server environment, but I could click MySQL. Now I I've already went and added this, but you have to add some drivers. But I'm telling you, it's very easy to do for the first time. I don't know if it's it doesn't tell you here, but there is a link out here. It'll happen the first time you go out there. You need a connector. I don't know if this is the page. Yeah, this might be the page here. You need a driver and a connector. Yeah, this is the page right here. So all I had to do is download the driver, which I did, and then after I did that, I downloaded another step, which was a SQL. So it was two drivers, one for Tableau and one for SQL, and it allowed me to come down here. So I'm going to connect to my environment out here at Point Park. So if I do sign in, all right, so now it's going to tell me it doesn't work.
How do you get back to that home screen?
Hold up, man. Hold up, brother. Let me enter my password in. All right, so now I connected to my SQL database. Now I can come out to my SQL and choose all the list of databases I have out here, or tables or whatever. But in this case right here, my database, I'm going to choose customers out here somewhere. That's some sample data, customers out here somewhere. Oh, you know what? I'll choose the OM database. And so OM has a list of tables. So these are tables that are out on my SQL environment today. And so I could query this information. So if I come out to here, as you see here, I have this OM database, I have customers. So I'm now connected to that environment directly through Tableau. So now I have access to all my data. So I could, if I want to pull customers, I could click on customers over here. Excuse me, update. And then I could pull all my data directly within here. I could also, don't know why that did that. I could also join on other tables. So instead of writing join statements, so let's say that orders, I want to join on orders. As soon as I click on orders here, you notice it automatically connects it. So it does a join on that table, and it shows you which columns are related so that it could build a relationship on it. So it automatically does that for you, which is nice. And I'll just do update. And once I do update, it just gives me all the data between those two columns that has some type of relationship. So like order ID, customer ID, order date, and so forth. So it allows me to get that information, and then I could come back up here and I could actually start filtering on it if I'm looking for specific information. Now it doesn't have all the columns in here, which I can specify what columns I want to look at. So you can show the hidden files or hidden fields or whatever, because there's a bunch of them here. So you could do, and as you do this right here, it's almost like a group by in a sense. So you could do ascending and descending, just pretty basic stuff here, kind of like Excel in a sense. But what's nice about this is you're importing directly from the database, so you're not having to do an extraction from the database. And it depends on where you work at, because a lot of times you don't have access to certain tools to do the extraction. So you need DBA rights, so you need a DBA to pull down information. But in this case right here, you're pulling directly through Tableau, you're connected directly at the source, and you're able to grab all that data. It might just be read data, read-only data, so you can't make any changes, which is fine. But for what you're trying to accomplish, it helps. Billy, to answer your question, if you click the little guy up in the corner here, it'll take you back to the main screen.
Yeah, I can't figure out how you back to the other screen.
Watch this video. Anyways, any questions on this aspect of it? Now, if I want to delete this here, this relationship, I could just say remove that relationship and brings that out. So if I want to add other relationships as items, for example, as it looks like it doesn't have much, so it's just select a matching field because it can't find anything that looks like it that would match. And that basically means that the two columns from the two tables, so I have customers and items, that just means that how it was matching before, it was taking two columns that had the names were related to each other, so it understood how to connect them. But in this essence, these are two different names, and it doesn't understand if the two have some type of relationship built into it. Now, I'm not going to get into SQL 101 and tell you how we can accomplish that. That's not this class. But for the most part, I would have to specify if there's some type of relationship. And I know off the top of my head, looking at this, there's no relationship. So I know that I can't join on that table from customers. Maybe I could join from another one. So it just depends. So this is kind of like almost going back to, if anyone ever learned Microsoft Access, it's kind of like that in essence. Access is not something I'd recommend to learn, but if you learned it, this would remind you of it because it just defines different ways of pulling up information. And then we could do different things with the customers. So for example, if I wanted to go into sheet 1, so it told me to go into sheets. And now this is where you could build like a report. And this week we're not going to get too in-depth with it, but I just want to kind of talk about like the basic stuff with it. So for example, I had sheet 1 up here automatically, so you could change it to whatever you want to call it. And later on, we could learn how to build dashboards out of this and so forth. But for the most part, I'll just say, I don't know, my branch report. You could call it anything. You could make it. You could change the font on it. You could make it bold if you want to make it fancy. That's fine. Do whatever you want to do with it. Perfect. So I have that information up here. Any questions at this point? I know Billy's probably chopping it a bit back there. Any questions? Go ahead, Matt.
Too many to even look up. I'll follow along.
All right. So we have our tables, and you understand. If you see here, they have specified different information. So, and this is kind of hard to see. I don't know if I can zoom in on this. I can't zoom in. I could zoom in here because I know you guys in the back probably can't see because I couldn't see if I was back there either. It's not pretty, but it does zoom in. So we have our table information up here. So this is like all of our string data. All this information below is some type of numeric value. So what it does is those are called measurements. And measurements are some type of whole number or decimal number or whatever the case is. So when we're building a report out, we could specify certain areas for certain values so that it could measure the data in some manner. So now you guys don't have access to this, but I'm using this as an example. So let's say that I wanted to, I don't know, do a report on cities. So I could drag it up to columns here and say specify I want to do cities, and maybe I want to do, I think I have states here. I can do states. Actually, I want to put this in rows right here. So I want to put them in rows. So I can put the rows right here. So you see across, I have city, I have state. Maybe I want to get customer account numbers, and I can throw it up here in columns, which allows me to kind of start building like a little graph out where I can say, hey, you know what, in Charlotte, we have one customer, maybe Cincinnati, we have one. So maybe if I want to get a more high-level report, I would just get rid of city and just do it by state. So that way we can really see from state level. We have 11 customers in California versus we have 4 customers in Ohio. So you can start building your report out any way you want to. You could also specify what other things that you want on it. So now you know that this kind of goes down to that group by thing. The more data we add to it, it's going to get bigger. So if I put customer name, to me this looks like garbage because if I look at this, I'm going to say, why do I care about Kyle, Ann, Mike, Bob, Ralph? I don't care about them because when I look at this is going to be very hard to figure out what's going on. So you want to be certain what you're trying to spell out. So whatever you're trying to specify. In this case right here, state is good. We could do city as well in this example, but we probably want to take state out because, oops. Yeah, so if I got rid of, well, actually, let me keep it here for a second. So when I keep it by state, you see how it groups it? It groups it by, because originally we had it by city. So if I did city, I'm just kind of going all over the place here, which is fine. When I did it like this right here didn't group it right, because you see here it has two different states that they have Iowa and New Jersey tied together, so it shouldn't be that way. So if you group it by how you want to group it by, so if you specify by state and city, you see how everything groups down. By Arizona, it'll specify that, hey, there's one. But in California, it does a group by, and it breaks down each city. So it shows, okay, there's 2 in LA, there's 3 in Fresno, which is actually where I get my wine grapes from, by the way. It's Fresno, California. And DC, Washington, you have 2, and so forth. So you could start building this out. So remember, the columns would be more or less your measurements, your anything dealing with numeric values is what you're going to put up there. Anything below that is going to be your columns that you want to specify, but you want to be careful on what data you add to those elements, because when you're trying to create some type of measurement or something like that, you want to make sure it looks fine. Like if we did first name and last name, to me that would be difficult to understand what's happening. So this right here is just a piece of the pie. And we can talk about all these other things at another time, but you could also go over here and change it up, because it defaults at this one, but maybe you want it to be like this right here. So it changes a different graph that you want to use. It shows you the dimensions. Maybe you want to do one of these here for some reason. So looks kind of funky looking, but it also, this is a different way of looking at it, but you can kind of look at it. It's like going back when we were doing the identifying the different fire trucks and what order they were in. It's kind of doing that. As soon as you look at this, your brain right off the bat says, okay, California is the largest bubble we have out here. So that tells me that, LA or Fresno has the most. But if we did like by state, then it would look a lot different. So if we took the city out and let's say we got rid of the city, now you notice how it blows up. So this might be a better graph where you can say, hey, you know what? We're getting more service. I'm selling more wine in California than I'm selling in, say, Wisconsin. If I was selling cheese wine, maybe they'd be interested. So you could tell a story with that right there. Any questions on any of this?
I put in one of my other files and
They work fine?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna save this for all. Oops.
It's so easy too.
It is, yeah.
That's just insane.
It is, I'm not worried about that. So let me go back and do the file that I provide. You could also, real quick, there's like saved data sources out here, sample data sources that you could use as well. So let me go back to Excel and use that Tour de France one I provided you guys. We could just click on sheet 1 here, create a new sheet maybe. The screen would just quit doing what it's doing. Let me exit. Oh, Jesus. All right. And then exit materials. Let me grab a file. Go to sheet 1. And then now when you do the file that I provided you, you're going to have a lot more stuff to play around with than what my little file was. So if I did starting country and rows, we could do that, and then maybe we could have how many entrants there were. Let me go back over, oops, this little guy right here. So now we could look at this and say, whoa, France had the most people entering the contest versus, and the second one was Netherlands. So you could start adding a lot more information to your columns. If you have up here, maybe you want to put a total distance as well. You could add, oops. So when you're doing, well, I'll show you something. So when you're over here, you want to add stuff, you have to go back to what you kind of start off with and then just add stuff over there. So if I wanted to put total distance, that kind of might break it down a little bit. It might not specify, this might not be the best, but if you kind of hover over, it'll tell you the country, the entrance, and the total distance, which is still France is killing it. I don't know why UK don't even show up, but Germany is showing stuff as well. So this right here is a really cool way of looking at it. That's just my personal reference. So you could always do a pie chart, but the pie chart you have to increase it.
Yeah, the pie chart?
Is
It's so small.
yeah, there's a way to increase it, but right now it's, well, I'll show you how to make this bigger. You could even use this geographical map. I don't know if it still works or not. I don't know, it's too big, it doesn't show enough for me.
I guess, yeah, the little dots in the other countries.
Yep.
Too small.
Yep, too small. So you see, you can play around with it and do different things. That's all I'm looking for you guys to do this week, to really mess around with it. Next week we'll get into a lot more stuff, as you see up here. Oh, why is that going to do that? I'm not sure you guys can see this, but we could do dashboards, we could do stories. So there's a whole other thing that we could do with telling a story with it. Think of it as presenting some type of presentation. We could do forecasting with it as well. So there's a million different things that we could do with it. And I want to get into a lot more with it, but I don't want to overwhelm everybody with the information that we could do with it.
It's really neat though, because like
It is neat. Yeah.
Comparing this like our studio and how difficult it is to like make a graph of that at times.
Oh, really?
Like just like because you have to type everything out correctly, and this one is just like drag.
Drag and drop, yeah.
Yep.
Yes, I agree. What if there's no other questions? What I want to do is I want to allow some time for the teams to get together, so that you guys, pardon my English, ladies and gents, can get together and talk about what you want to work on for this week's assignment. Because this week's assignment is a group task, and it'll be based off the group members that are currently in your groups. But before I move there, is there any questions on any of this stuff here? Okay, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to stop the recording. This recording will be available out here.